Wonderful. Well, thank you all for being here. I did not realize this was the very last panel, so we're very proud to be here with a lot of folks here in the audience. I guess that means we are the only thing standing between the roast of Solana, a yacht party, and an after party. So we're going to try to make this very conversational. We're going to try to make this really intentional, and we've got three pretty diverse panelists here. We're going to talk about stuff that really matters to the Solana ecosystem. So my name is Brandon Slack. I lead protocol partnerships at Masari on our protocol services business. And we'll just go around the horn quickly, let you guys introduce yourself, what your project does, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. My name is Sven, co-founder at Light Protocol. And Light is a protocol for scaling state and data storage on Solana. So basically rent-free accounts and tokens.
Hi, my name is Alex with AutoSec. We do smart contract audits and general software security. We handle that for Solana itself, as well as protocols that run on top of Solana.
Hi, I'm Beeman. I work for PubKey. I build innovative open source software on Solana, and super excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, I'll say from our perspective, when this panel was originally put on, it was a little bit of a different focus. It was specifically ZK and privacy focused. We've pivoted somewhat. But I actually think now where we're at, this is a perfect culmination point for Crossroads, because we've got three panelists here that are basically going to talk about what matters to Solana. So how do we achieve hyperscalability, do that in a decentralized open source manner, and then make sure that security and user experience are paramount. So with that, Sven, I'll just start with you. ZK compression and the way that you guys are thinking about allowing Solana to scale at lightning speed so that we all can trade any asset on world at the speed of light. What does that mean to you all, and how do you think about state compression using ZK as an element to that? And we'll kind of dive into more infrastructure conversations after that, but I'll let you kick it off there.
Sure, yeah. So if you zoom out, there's basically four things that Solana cares about. When it talks about IBRL, right, increased bandwidth, reduced latency. So that is faster writes, right, landing transactions faster, writing to the blockchain. That's faster reads, right, on the RPC level, improving that. And then also, what also matters if you want to scale a blockchain is cheaper writes and cheaper reads. And that's where, we've designed ZK compression together with the folks at Helios Labs last year. Now we're launching an improved V2 as much more efficient, etc. But we think all about how can we make writes cheaper and reads cheaper. If you zoom out, like we want to get to 1 billion users on chain with hundreds of accounts per user, etc. The only way to achieve that is through some sort of compression. And then, the way where ZK comes in is we shrink the proof size. We make it very efficient to compose with compressed accounts, compressed tokens, if you're building an app on Solana. And so that's what we think about.
That's super helpful. And I'll just kick it over to you, Beeman, quickly. We talked a little bit earlier today about as we accelerate and we onboard 1 billion people into the ecosystem, we're still all here for a reason. We want to do that in a decentralized open source manner. We'd love to hear your perspective on what that means, why you chose to build on Solana, and how we make sure we get that right over the next 12, 24 months as we continue to build and scale.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I've been in crypto quite a while. 2016, I started building on Ethereum, and I felt it was not ready for consumer-grade apps. And Solana has been the first chain where I really felt this. And then it's a classic case of came for the tech, stayed for the community. There's a lot of people building, and there's a lot of stuff happening. So I think we're on a very right track here. It's clearly hard to say what happens in the next 18 to 24 months, but I think with things like compression and enabling these kind of things, you need to tackle these things early on to enable this. This is not something you can do like after the fact. Once something's created on chain, it stays there basically forever. And I think we need to be aware of the choices we make today in order to do these things well in the future. One of the things we just talked about, Light Protocol, this is an open source primitive, and this should be adopted by a lot of apps, I think. This will not happen if it's built by a centralized for-profit company only. And I think we're in the right way there. And this also kind of ties in the security aspect, because I think one of the important things in crypto and Web3 is that we are taught to not only trust but verify. And if something is run by an anonymous entity, it's really hard to get there.
That's a perfect segue. Alex, would love to hear your perspective on the security side. You guys work with a lot of protocols in the Solana ecosystem. It's obviously really important, as you and I talked about, to be open sourced, where you've got more people using the dApp, got more eyeballs on, maybe more security risks. Now people are working together in tandem to solve these problems. How do you guys think about securing both the protocol individually and then helping support the broader Solana ecosystem?
Yeah, definitely a big fan of community security and just open source mentality, right? So to the point earlier, the more that we can open source software that we write on top of Solana, then the more eyeballs that can get on the code base, and that we can then find the issues early, often, and ahead of time, and have the open discussions that are required, right? Like, just even maybe a slight tangent, but like a lot of the requests that I get for audits, my first question is, do you have an architectural document, and have you written your unit tests? And unfortunately, both are missing a lot of the times, and so kind of getting ahead of the ball, like I guess maybe one of the security messages is write your unit test and write your architectural documents. And then get the community to help you review these things. And when you have these open discussions, then it just makes your job easier, and it makes security easier overall. And then to the whole community, then this just pushes us faster, farther.
No, I love that. Thank you. I was going to talk about that with you, about what are some of the important lessons you guys have learned covering so many Solana projects. That's a perfect answer. Let me flip it on you then and ask, are there any emerging threats in the security landscape that you guys are looking at that teams maybe are not aware of or are just unexpected as we continue to scale, kind of move fast and break things, and everyone's kind of running in the same direction, but we're all doing it a little bit independently? Is there any major trends that you guys have seen on the security side that is notable for folks?
I always I still go back to the basics. Like we if you guys wrote your unit tests, we wouldn't exist. No, I'm kidding. There's a lot of the issues can actually be avoided by writing the unit tests, having the discussions internally before you get to us, right? And we talk about this internally too, right? It's something that sounds fairly basic, but it's something that is missed quite a bit. And we're happy to help out in these conversations. Just hit us up on Telegram. Happy to talk through any of the design issues, the design challenges that people may have.
Wonderful. Sven, a question for you. So ZK compression, you guys are working a lot with teams that are doing airdrops, and obviously there are, I think, 1 million accounts per day that are being spun up on Solana at this point. How do you guys think about doing that in a way that is efficient? I think the whole point here is that compute costs on Solana are fairly cheap. Storage at scale is actually quite expensive. How do you guys think about tackling that problem in the future? And maybe most importantly is, how are you working with other ecosystem participants to support the ecosystem most broadly?
Yeah, for sure. So, unironically, most demand for the compressed token standard, which is a program that we've built on top of the underlying compressed PDAs or compressed account VM. Most demand is for people creating a token, SPL token, and then distributing it to thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of users. And obviously, last couple of months, it's been a lot of meme coins, but then there's also now bigger teams coming in, teams that are also coming from the Ethereum world, looking to launch their token. Those might be NFT communities, etc. And they're kind of using compressed tokens as like the way to do these token distributions. And then obviously, if you zoom out, most of the activity on Solana is creating a token and then trading it, right? And actually most token accounts don't ever actually get touched the second time. So it's like, if you look at all the transactions on Solana, it's mostly it's creating tokens, trading. And so we really lean into that. And obviously, as we've seen, some teams have done many millions of recipients for the airdrops. And so we need to make sure that we're not clocking up the chain, right? Because we launched V1 7 months ago, and so the focus for the last couple of months has really been on making the protocol much more efficient. So we've slashed compute unit usage by like 60, sometimes more, 60%, sometimes more. So now it actually becomes much more feasible to integrate compressed tokens into these DeFi lifecycle flows, right? You have a compressed token in your wallet because someone sent it to you, or you have received an airdrop. Now the next step is to get all these different partners, trading APIs, aggregators, liquidity front ends to integrate. Now that we have the Fandom integration and other wallet integrations, so getting all these pieces together, that's a big focus of ours. So that eventually, if you zoom out, we want to be at a place where you as a user don't notice it, but your tokens are compressed, and then whenever you interact with DeFi, they sort of atomically get decompressed. You do your swap, you do your action, and then it goes back to compress. So that eventually we can have 1 billion users on chain, and they hold all their tens of billions of assets, and the Solana is still running. That's the goal.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Beeman, maybe I'll kick it over to you quickly. Speaking about wallets and sending a lot of random things to wallets and whatnot, you're building a decentralized identity solution. How do you think about wallets, what their purpose is? How are they maybe differential on Solana versus Ethereum? And how do we get this right 6, 12 months from now as we continue to scale, onboard people, and do it in a way that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my opinion on wallets, I think the UX of the wallets in Solana is heaps better than other chains, mainly Ethereum. On the other hand, as much as we like to sit on Ethereum, the main wallet there is open source. So I can actually pull it in and check it out. I can make adjustments. I can propose changes. They might then integrate it. In Solana, there's not such a thing. And I'm working on projects, and it's very frustrating to bump into issues and limitations. And there's literally nothing that I can do other than beg for help. And this often gets ignored. So I think there's a huge opportunity for the wallet vendors actually to listen to the community and do stuff that actually helps us. Most of these people are originally devs, so they should understand kind of the struggle and the things that we're running into. And it's kind of saddening to see that this is still not the case. 2 years ago, Breakpoint Amsterdam, there was a big problem from all the 3 wallet vendors that were sitting in a similar panel that they would all be doing open source. I haven't seen anything yet. So this is kind of my pet peeve. I know I'm repeating myself, but this is super important, obviously, if we can just verify the things that are not supposed to trust them. So that's kind of one angle. The other angle, identity, it's kind of philosophical, but we are not our wallets. Our identity is a complex thing. Most people probably know me by my Twitter handle or my avatar and not my wallet address. And in addition, my wallet changes all the time. I try to do proper wallet hygiene and actually recycle wallets and use new ones. And a lot of anti-patterns emerge where people are doing soul-bound tokens, which is kind of an anti-pattern and a misnomer at best. It's not soul-bound, it's wallet-bound, but it's really nasty to have something in your wallet that you can't really get out. So I hope to see a paradigm shift as well. And I think the other interesting aspect is we see more and more where people actually use social identities to generate a key pair. I think that's a great pattern, actually. Things like Privy is a new kid on the block. They're doing something in terms of UX that makes it way easier to onboard people that are not crypto native. So they're not bothering you with the seed phrase and making a backup of all of this stuff. On the other hand, you're now putting a certain trust in an independent startup that's for profit, closed source, and I think that's a big risk there. So here as well, we should do better as an ecosystem and actually expect from these vendors to at least give us a way as a dev to pull our user information out and run this ourselves. So I think we're making progress, and having these kind of onboarding flows definitely gets more people on board. But with that, we as developers, we have responsibilities, and I think we should take that. And there's definitely a lot to improve.
That's very helpful context. Thank you. That's why we have you up here shouting from the rooftops for some of these insights. So Alex, I'm going to ask you this question, and I'll kick it between all three of you. But talking about DeFi, we've moved into wallets. From the OtterSec standpoint, you guys cover so many protocols. What are some emerging trends or use cases or new primitives that you guys are seeing develop in the market, primarily on Solana, that may not be present or even possible in other ecosystems? If anything comes to mind, and then we'll kind of round robin.
But that's a bit of a harder question for me to answer. Kind of going back to the application stuff that was just talking about. We do have a decompiler coming up that actually is already out there. If anybody is interested in decompiling applications, we can help with that. Just gotta check out our Twitter, and then you can see what's running underneath the hood, even if it's closed sourced. So
wonderful. Sven, maybe I'll ask you, from DeFi, gaming, NFTs, etc., who are you guys working and partnering with right now? What are some primitives that are developing as state growth maybe gets solved for slowly but surely, and the chain just gets ever faster every day?
Well, it's still mostly DeFi.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the activity is just creating tokens, trading tokens.
Sure.
There are different shapes of these things. I am very interested in all the SocialFi stuff. So some gamified elements. You have folks like Time.Fun. They're tokenizing time and make it tradable. They put it on a bonding curve, and I think it's just a very interesting experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Solana is at a point where if you have very talented founders, you can actually use existing primitives, the 5 or 6 smart contracts that matter. You can use these. Usually those top smart contracts, they're usually open source on Solana actually. So it's pretty easy to compose, right? And it's something that's unique on Solana as well. It's like the composability aspect is pretty neat, where you can have these different markets and you can hop between different programs in one atomic transaction. I'm looking forward to see more consumer type apps launching and then actually finding traction around, honestly, it's going to be around trading probably, but in different shapes and sizes, and I think that's cool.
Sure. I think social interactions in general, trading and gambling and prediction markets, etc. Alex?
Yeah, I can jump back in there again. So that thought just popped into my mind is that we're generally starting to see more ZK, and that's some of this coming up on the radar a bit more, and so that might be something of interest. So just want to throw that out there.
That's a good sign for some folks.
For sure. I mean, we're using ZK under the hood, right? We try to make it really easy for people to use it. It's really abstracted away. It's like another RPC call. It's very fast, in the milliseconds, proving time. You can only really do these types of proofs on Solana because you don't need to roll up whole blocks or transactions, which is just insanely expensive currently in the EVM, for instance. But yeah, there's interest from people building with privacy and other primitives that are maybe a layer on top of ZK compression. We'll have to see if there's enough talent to push through and find adoption with these products. But yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. And then also speaking to like the security aspect of that, to one of your earlier questions as well, anytime there's new code bases that come out, then wholly that's where there's less known security issues that have been previously identified, then that's challenging, right? So if you see less hacks occurring, that may simply be because the black hats have not had time or are still ramping up on the code bases, right? And so inevitably it's all coming down the pipeline at some point. So
no, thank you. Beeman, I'll ask a similar question, but on the wallet plus social integration side, we're now bringing in 1 billion people doing consumer-facing application-type behavior. What do you think that looks like in the future? What are some of the most important aspects of Solana's ecosystem, whether it's gamifying things or social elements, etc.?
Yeah, I think a proper way to link social identities with wallet identities would go far. Would go very far if we build primitives that do that. So currently, it's something that a lot of apps, they either don't integrate it because it's hard, or they do kind of a haphazard job. But the fact of the matter is that there's a ton of apps. If they integrate it, I'll have to do the same verification of my identities over and over again, which is kind of useless. And if we talk about the classic use case of my mom, who also wants to use a crypto app maybe at a time, this is obviously going to scare her away. And so maybe you can ask somebody to do this once, but if they have to repeat the same dance over and over again, that's clearly very tiring, and that's not a great UX. So I'd love to see like a base level building block, kind of like a protocol as low level as maybe email or DNS, that's just there where you can tap into, define your profile once or twice, and then we all know that this is something that's guaranteed. Now, to the centralization aspect of this, let's say if PubKey runs this service, this wouldn't be great because now everybody has to trust me, and I don't want anybody to trust me, or you don't have to trust me. So I think if we can build a system where various people can validate something that's already true, and you have some high authority like DAOs, like let's say Monkey DAO, or maybe Marinate, or Solflare, or Messari running such a service, that we win big as an ecosystem. And we don't have to rely on one partner to do something. We can do this as a whole. Like Solana is the only place that I know of that has actually users, and that the system allows it to be used as a database. So you can use Solana as a database, you can store data in there. Even though that 99% of the things that we do on chain are either tokens or escrows, we can use it for other stuff. And I think we should explore it more and more and use this as a way to store data that you then actually own and others can use. And like currently, if there's a third-party authentication system, this data is typically stored off-chain, which means you cannot use this inside a Solana program. Whereas if you store this data on chain and you actually prove that somebody owns a certain identity, you can add logic around this in your programs. So you can basically give discounts to people that verify their GitHub identity for a website like Gitwork, where it's important to have some sort of reputation system because you want to work with devs. So I think we're missing a bunch of primitives there. I know it's possible. I've been working on an implementation to actually do this, and I need to have input from folks like the guys next to me to make it actually work and make sure it's a correct thing to fix. But I think there is a need for such a thing, and it saves developers integrating the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think in Web3, we are binary sometimes in the outcomes that we want, and it's either 0 or 1, all or nothing. And the idea of progressive decentralization over time is great. It takes time to do these things right. It takes a lot of ideation, iteration, so that's wonderful. Let me ask you guys, we're coming up a little bit on time here, but I will kick this over to all three of you. Let's say 2 to 3 years in the future, what is the ideal state of user adoption on the Solana ecosystem in general? What is best case for us?
I can start.
Sure.
You said 3-year timeline?
Yeah, call it 2 to 3 years. What does a good future state look like with the direction we're moving now? Is it just another billion meme coins being airdropped into my wallet? Is there something deeper?
Look, I think the tokenization of stocks is something that most people wouldn't consider meme coins, although arguably, on the surface it's the same thing. But sure. I think that's really powerful, right? And so I think that's one thing, is like democratizing access to different stocks. Maybe in 3 years that's a little bit fast. Sometimes it's easier to reason about what's happening in 5 to 10 years.
Right.
But that's one thing. And then, I think besides that, the upside is pretty large. I think people underestimate this. I think that crypto, especially chains like Solana, will power a lot of the future infrastructure for payments, right? So payments is one of the killer use cases, right? It's escrow of tokens and moving tokens. And so I would say uncapped upside, but and not putting the timeline on there, but 1 billion users, $1 trillion in stablecoin volume, maybe in stablecoins on chain, and maybe a trillion accounts. I think that's where we're heading.
Sure. And my sense would be for Light specifically, as we bring in all these ETF issuances and these new assets come on chain and we're tokenizing everything that has a QSIP or a QR code, suddenly solving for this explosion of stake growth becomes really important. So that's helpful.
Yeah, that's one thing, one element, right? I think the chain needs to be faster and needs to be cheaper, and that's what matters. Yeah.
Wonderful. Alex, kick it over to you.
I'm a huge fan of infrastructure, but infrastructure from the internet standpoint. So blockchainification of switches, routers, hubs, anything that, if you understand what helium is, then going down that route, right? So what does a packet touch? Then blockchain that, or I guess in our terms, deepen. So.
Are the security concerns materially different in that world a couple years in the future versus where they are today and where they are just coming from Web 2 cybersecurity in general?
No. People still need to write their unit tests.
Fair enough. Tried and true. Beeman?
Yeah, I think agree with Swen, payments is a no-brainer. We all talk about having real-world adoption. We have PayPal using PyUSD on Solana. I think that's huge. People underestimate how huge that is. PayPal is like global company, right? We finally have somebody like this on board. I hope to see more like this. I hope that my bank at some point will offer me a way to hold at least some of my crypto and interact with it. I'm not going to shove all of my crypto into a bank, but it definitely makes it convenient. We have family in Latin America. We use apps like Decaf for remittance. It saves me a ton of money, but also a ton of hassle. It's just instantly. If I have to go through Western Union, it's just a hurdle. And because I got a European passport, I have to use euros. So there's a whole bunch of gatekeeping and basically begging for permission to use the system and then pay them a ton. Whereas what we do on chain, it's virtually free. And I can even get a free airdrop meme coin, send it to my brother-in-law, and he has some money. This is, I think, the future of finance, and this is where we should be heading towards. And I really hope to see more integrations on that. 3 years from now, it might be a bit soon, but I definitely hope we're getting there. We'll be probably peak bear market, so we'll see what's the rate of innovation at that point. But yeah,
I heard someone say there are no more cycles. We'll see a year from now too if that's true or not. We'll see.
The famous super cycle.
Of course, right? Yeah. I'll do lightning round with you guys. We have 2 minutes left. What's most important to your project right now? Just parting words. We're kind of here on the second day of Crossroads, so I'll just give you guys lightning rounds on something important to your team.
Launching the V2 upgrade, which is, I think, pending audit from the folks at AutoSec. That's one big one. On the core protocol side, and then the rest of it is go-to-market.
Sure. Yeah. Wonderful. Alex?
Think about security early and often. Do not call us 2 weeks before you need an audit. Call us months in advance. We'll help you think through what you need and write your unit tests.
I like what you have with unit test. I have it with open source. So yeah, my message is open source your stuff. I'd like to see more. I'm actually helping people to do it practically, helping them make their stuff open source, make sure it has a proper license, etc. I help business in consulting and what the strategy is, because it's not a binary thing. It's a gradient. You can open source a piece. You don't have to do it all. And for PubKey itself, I'm working on this protocol. I really like to get it launching. I'm looking for people that give me feedback and actually use it in their apps. I'm not sure if it's a good idea. I obviously think it's a good idea, but we need to prove this. And the best way is to just get feedback, then hop over to Alex to get a proper audit, and work with Swen to make it private and make it work fast and scalable.
I love it. Well, thank you all so much for joining me. This was really fun. I hope this was a helpful panel. I know it was a little more broad scope than some others. Ultimately, what I think it really conveys is Solana is this open field of innovation with incredibly ambitious projects that are building new primitives that have never been built before. And so I just want to say thank you for joining me. Thanks everyone for being here at Crossroads, and hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.